All right, everyone, it's time for Vermont Issues, episode 51. The de facto mayor of Barre, and they have kind of a weird council set up there. Lauzon is basically Vermont's Donald Trump of sorts. He's done property-related things. He likes a little bit of the rumor mill, a little bit of the drama. Actually, reading the write-up about him, I have to say I kind of agree with him on the state of Barre. Here's the problem with Barre. If you've ever gone through there, and I have several times, it's kind of run down. It has some issues. It doesn't need to. It could be basically, at least like a next Rutland. It's right near the capital of Montpelier, which of course that has all the government stuff, but Montpelier itself is a very, very small state capital. I think it has a population of, if I remember correctly, less than 8,000 people. So it's not exactly very large in size, and if you're in Montpelier, you could go right across, 5-minute drive basically, you're in Barre, and do your shopping and stuff there. People, a few of them probably commute from Barre. Instead, people from Montpelier area, usually I think they go over to Burlington because it's so much larger. There's not a lot in Barre to actually do. Now, Barre is one of the larger settlements in Vermont, which isn't saying a huge amount, but it's roughly Bennington-sized. It's roughly Brattleboro sized. It's up there enough so that there is something to do. And Lauzon is talking about redeveloping sort of one of these blighted zones. And it's funny because he himself, as acting mayor of Barre, is also the one that wants to do the actual developing. So he's trying to go through and basically get permission to do this. Why exactly, in my estimation, why exactly would that be a problem? Again, Vermont's not the same as maybe New York City or Los Angeles or something like that. There you would have to worry about some local machine politic screwing people. Here in the state of Vermont, if nothing else, the legalism that we have here that can be a problem does prevent exploitation to some degree. I would think it would not be problematic if he himself, even in that capacity, wanted to essentially greenlight his own development. Why would it matter? At least development is happening in the city of Barre. It's sort of like down in Bennington. I mean, when did we get the idea that because there's one step of separation between a political body and somebody who's doing some sort of business work, that somehow is more honest, more forthright, more noble than if somebody involved with politics themselves is doing some sort of development? I think we've got this idea that somebody cannot possibly be involved at any level with politics and at the same time operate in a business capacity outside of politics without being totally corrupt, and they're obviously trying to screw people. I would like to believe that in some cases that's not actually true. If he wants to tear out a blighted zone in Barre and build something that's actually nice there, something that contributes to the community, why would that be a problem? I think the article mentions that it has Vermont's only strip club. I didn't know there was still one in operation. I know years and years ago, I think there was one in White River. And I can't remember whether they forced it to close down, like they refused to continue licensing them to operate, or whether it just sort of went under for financial reasons. But if you've been to White River, they have kind of similar problems. It's a generally a raggedy sort of little town. No offense to anybody in White River, but people in White River, they they live there basically, and then they go shop in Lebanon. And so a lot of the stuff that's sort of in White River is lower end, and it's not quite as nice. You go across to Lebanon, and it looks sort of like the Vegas Strip almost, with an airport and everything else, and then you've got Dartmouth-Hitchcock in the general area, and has more of the commercial, so the shiny business appeal. In White River, you don't have that. With Barre, again, you've got sort of this dynamic, even though it's within state. Burlington has all of those businesses, and Barre gets sort of shit. It's just sort of the way that things tend to be in parts of Vermont, where you've got a business unfriendly, maybe sort of run-down area. It doesn't need to be. It could be rather nice. but it hasn't taken full advantage of its development capabilities. Part of this is a problem at the state level. That is, the state government looks at a community, says something is scenic or touristy or historically important for some vague reason, and decides that the community has to, at its own cost, maintain such things, leave them there, never develop them, and never change. I would like to believe that there's room in Vermont. This is my principle. There's room in Vermont both for advancement and for sort of the scenic appeal and the things stay the same forever sort of mentality. And there are both in Vermont, and I don't see this as a problem, and a community should be able to choose sort of which route it wants to go down. Either way, though, you do need investment. You do need to maintain. Now, if you intend to be touristy and keep things the same forever, like maybe Woodstock does, you have to be able to invest. If I want to go someplace in Vermont where everything is perpetually the same, I can go over to Woodstock. Now, it hasn't changed since I was a little kid. I was there when I went to my grandfather's funeral. We stopped over in the town, so-called village, really, of Woodstock. Not Woodstock, you know, from the concert. Woodstock, the tourist resort, basically. Absolutely nothing there is different. It looks exactly the same. It's like time froze and stands still since at least the 1990s. And it's both a comforting and a kind of spooky feeling for me to go to Woodstock. Comforting because it's like, oh yeah, I remember everything about this. It's exactly the same as when I was a kid. It's kind of cool. Spooky in the sense that it's sort of like walking into a Stephen King movie involving time warps or something like that. It really is it's kind of like It or something like that. It's a little bit on the creepy side to me. If I want a place where a lot stays the same, but there is a little bit of change, right here in Rutland, that's sort of where you get it. And that's sort of my comfort zone. I like Rutland, problems aside with the town maybe, city so-called. I kind of like the general feel of Rutland. It's sort of my size of place to be, where you have places to shop, but there's not a lot of noise. It's not inner city. It's not really truly a metro area. I kind of like it. And if you want a place where everything changes constantly and you've got a lot of growth, you go to Burlington. Well, that's just fine. Barre can choose that sort of in-between model. Right now it's sort of on the stagnant side, which doesn't totally make sense for a town of that size. Bennington's trying to advance. I think they're voting on replacing their entire sewer system. They've got that one block that they're redeveloping, talking about other projects they may want to do. Good on them. That's a good idea. Upgrading your sewers especially, because of this runoff problem we keep happening, is something we should probably consider here in Rutland, to tell the truth. If this individual who jokes about burning businesses to the ground and things like that wants to redevelop parts of Barre on his own dime as a for-profit project, as long as it's separate from politics insofar as he's not using his position or his friends' positions, because apparently he's in cahoots with various other political figures within Barre. If he wants to invest his own money and redevelop this project at a capitalistic profit, who cares? If it benefits the people of Barre, who cares? And if it doesn't, well, they'll probably kick him out, I would assume. And he's kind of right when he says, well, if people don't like me, they can, why don't you have the balls to run and try to formulate your own solutions? Yeah, that's the way that such a representative system is supposed to work. If the people of Barre are concerned about his moves, all they have to do is find someone who's decently coherent, living in their community to run. It's not exactly a huge community. It wouldn't be difficult. Somebody could potentially do that, but as far as I know, nobody's stepping up to actually attempt to do so. Could it be that there's some apathy there? And if there's apathy, then why would anybody care if he's redeveloping this block or this zone, so to speak? I don't know that I have a problem with that. I'm not exactly a friend of like corporatism and big business entities, but this is small town Vermont we're talking about. We're talking about a local individual who lives in the community, who has to deal with the impact of things that go on within that community. Maybe he's tired of looking at something that could be considered run down. Maybe he's doing it partially for aesthetic benefit. By the way, Barre's in a good location, again, because it's near Montpelier, that if it grows a bit, if it spiffies itself up, yeah, it'd be a nice place for people from surrounding areas to shop too. They wouldn't all be going to Burlington. You could easily make it more profitable. There would be more jobs in the region, and everything would be probably fine if you invest properly. Rutland has similar problems. White River probably is the most problematic of all. And then further south, things get drained a bit by Claremont or Keene over in New Hampshire. Of course, they've got no sales tax. We've got, what is it now? 7% sales tax or 8% or something like that, some insane number. It doesn't make any sense. The cost of living is high enough in Vermont as is for people within the state. Why would they want to shop in Vermont if they have other options? No, that's why Lebanon does so well. But yeah, it's a simple case of they're assuming that he's going to screw people and be like totally corrupt. How do you know that? Do you have any basis for that estimation? Or are you just saying, well, he's wealthy, therefore must necessarily be corrupt because he's also in a political capacity while he's doing such a thing? I'm not sure that that's 100% always the case. I'd like to think that there are a few individuals who they care because they live in that actual community. They wouldn't want to see it totally screwed because then they suffer as well. That's about all. Peace out.